Economist and financial analyst Paul Alaje is in Abuja, the nation's capital, and he joins us now to offer possible ways out for any new government on this matter. Mr. Alaje, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday. Before we delve into the economic matters proper, I'm sure you've heard about the Supreme Court's ruling, the legal tender. Everything is still going to be peachy and remain legal until the end of the year. What are the implications of this for the Nigerian economy?
Well, what we've seen in recent, thank you so very much for having me, first of all. What we've seen with this judgment is that the Supreme Court and the state governors that challenged the authorities of Apex Bank and that of the federal government to unilaterally decide what should be a legal tender but has not been put to rest by the Apex courts, that's the Supreme Court of Nigeria. It is now being said that 500 and 1,000 Naira notes could be spent concurrently. Here is the question, where is the money? What the court has not said is the ability of who will actually release the old note back into the system. Recall that the central bank governor had mentioned that 2.1 trillion Naira more has been withdrawn from the economy. So if 2.1 trillion Naira has been withdrawn from the economy, would there be a way to enforce this judgment for central bank or any organization at all that may be in charge of this money that has been withdrawn to release back into our system? If the money is not released back, then I'm afraid it's really going to set us, there will be not so much different. That is one. Two, with this judgment, I think if the central bank and federal government accept, which I think they should, it will now mean that we need to start providing another set of orientation and information for people that were previously told that 1,500 are not legal tender. There are places where 200, you need to convince people to accept the old 200 Naira notes even after President Buhari broadcast. This is why it's important for those in authority to agree so that they don't mislead the public, especially the part of the public that may not have access to quantum information or updated information as the case may be. Now that the Supreme Court have said that the 500 and 1,000 Naira note should be accepted, recall that last week, Saturday, the general election, 2 weeks ago, I beg your pardon, general election, there was somebody has already been returned in the person of Mr. Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the president-elect, even though so many other parties have said they are going to challenge his victory in courts. So, but with this, Mr. Bola Tinubu has mentioned when he was in Ogun State, especially Abeokuta, that whether there is money or not, he will ensure, when he emerges, he will ensure that this money comes back into the system, that they will release the notes back for people to spend. So this judgment might be in line with what the president-elect has said he would do. President Buhari still has
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Just to add some flesh to our conversation, let's quickly let's move to the Supreme Court, where Governor El Rufai of Kaduna State had a statement, some comments to make after the ruling, as well as Governor Yahaya Bello of Kogi State. So let's take a look at what they had to say after the ruling was delivered.
The court has delivered judgment in your favor. Just your reaction so that Nigerians will hear you, sir.
Well,
Your Excellency, you're facing the cameras from various video organizations. Would like you to tell us exactly what transpired inside and what your take is.
Well,
what's your take on the court's decision?
Today is a day of happiness for all Nigerians. The Supreme Court of Nigeria has given us all the reliefs we sought for. By a very unanimous judgment, the full court of 7 justices gave a unanimous judgment, 7-0, that all our prayers to the court have been accepted. This is a victory for Nigerians, because this policy which was designed and targeted at a political party and its candidates, has brought untold hardship on our people. This is why the three of us took a decision to come to the Supreme Court. We are APC members. The President of Nigeria is from the APC, but we disagreed with him on this policy and its implementation. And when we tried everything to settle this behind closed doors, we had no option but to come to the Supreme Court. We are very grateful to the court for its unanimous decision and the orders it has given to the government, federal government, that from today till the 31st of December 2023, the old Naira notes of all denominations shall continue to circulate side by side with the new Naira notes. That's the major decision of the Supreme Court. The other decision is that the policy of currency confiscation, where you deposit money in the bank and the bank chooses what to give you, is unlawful and illegal and shall end forthwith. So Nigerians can go to the bank and collect whatever they have deposited and get on with their lives. Those that said that we went to the court because of elections are wrong. We went to the court because our people in our states are suffering and businesses in our states are coming to a halt and lives were being destroyed. That's why we went to court. We left elections in the hands of God and we all know the result. Even though this policy was designed to ensure that we did not win the presidential elections, we have won. But the policy must go because the Supreme Court has now decided that it was unlawfully conceived, it was unlawfully implemented, and the Supreme Court has extended the legal tender status of all our notes, old and new, at least to 31st December. And if before 31st December we feel the need to come back to the court, I will not be a governor then, but these two, by the grace of God, will still be governors. They will come back to the Supreme Court if we need to extend it further. But we hope that will not be necessary. That is all I have to say. I would like my colleagues who started this reform journey with me, because it's not rebellion, it's reform. We came to the Supreme Court to make Nigeria better. And by this judgment, no future president or central bank governor can come and announce a policy that ambushes the lives and the livelihoods of the Nigerian people anymore. We are very proud of what we have done, no matter what people say about us. So I would like to ask my colleagues, Governor Bello, to add to what I have said, and Governor Matawale of Zamfara State to also add. Your Excellency.
Okay. Yes, the President has disobeyed the earlier order as members of his cabinet, and we think that you advise him to obey this order.
Well, thank you very much. In addition to what our senior brother and our leader have said, we appreciate God and we appreciate the Supreme Court justices. They have proven that this is the place and the hope of all men, not just common man, men and women across this federation. Secondly, this particular decision today has laid a solid foundation for our incoming president, the president-elect, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to start and cruise on a solid foundation. This particular decision today has proven that Nigerian law is a respecter of no one, including Mr. President. Nobody can take the laws for granted and go scot-free. This is what it has proven today. I congratulate Nigerians. I congratulate the common man. And I sympathize and condole those that have lost their lives in these struggles to ensure that they earn their livelihood. You did not deserve it. And that is why our leader here, Governor El-Rufai, myself, and Governor Matawale, and all other governors, including some PDP governors, especially the governor of Rivers State, Sokoto and Abia. That is Governor Wike, Governor Tambuwal, and Governor Ukupeazu. You know, we all jointly come together to make sure we save our people. And today, Nigerians can have their lives. We appreciate all, and we appreciate the media for the role you have played in this struggle. You ensure that our struggle never go in vain. You are the real heroes of our democracy. Thank you and God bless you.
Yes,
we will take your questions.
Let's take your question and let us comment,
please.
Okay, thank you very much. Though my colleagues has already said everything, which you all understand why we are here, and I saw from all your faces that not just we that approach the court, including all the cameramen and the interviewers, you are all happy, you are all smiling because of this judgment. So we are all excited. As they said, you know, many people have been challenging us that because we have huge amount of money that we put in our houses, that's why we come to court. But you know it is not true, because like myself, I challenge EFCC that they should go to any of my property and boggle it and take any money that they have seen in my houses. Therefore, it's not about me, or about El-Rufai, or about Bello. It is about the Nigerians. Therefore, we have made it today, and we thank all the judges. 7 of them give same judgment. So we thank all of them, and we thank all of you for being here to see all the proceedings, and we know we have won this battle. Alhamdulillah.
So, what question? I have a question for you, sir. Any of you can answer the question. The opposition party has said that this policy has shown to Nigerians that the All Progressives Congress is confused. And now we are seeing the court ruling on a matter that your own party, your president initiated. And the court, you came to the court and the court is ruling against it. Does that confirm these statements that the APC is confused?
No, it does not. First, let me say that this is a policy of the PDP. Emefiele was appointed central bank governor by the PDP originally. So let's not forget where he came from. And he's the one that put this policy together to help the PDP win the 2023 general elections and deceive the president into thinking that it is possible to withdraw 2 trillion naira from circulation and reprint everything in 3 months. No country in world history has done it. He deceived the president, he gave the president wrong information, and the Attorney General, unfortunately, we have to claim that one is from our party, supported this policy, and we know why. Go and look at the antecedent. These are people that wanted to run for president or governor in our party and didn't make it. This is their revenge plan. But the Supreme Court justices today have shown that this is a policy against the people of Nigeria and is invalid. So let's not go back to what has happened last week. The election is over. Our candidate has won in spite of the obstacles. But for us, what is important is that ordinary Nigerians, traders, farmers, and businessmen can now move on with their lives. Go to your bank and collect all your money today. You have the right to do so by the order of the Supreme Court of Nigeria.
How optimistic are you that the federal government will obey this directive by the court?
Whether the federal government obeys the order or not is up to the federal government. But I know President Muhammad Buhari very well. Part of the reason why I convinced my colleagues to go to the Supreme Court is because we are among the closest governors to the president. And we wanted to show him, if those closest to you disagree with you so publicly on a matter of policy, you need to reflect on it. Okay? President Muhammad Buhari is a man that obeys the law. He may have been misguided by his advisors, but now that the Supreme Court has spoken unequivocally, I am confident that all the orders will be complied with. Thank you.
That was the governor of Kaduna State, El Rufai, and he's confirmed that all the prayers to the court has been accepted, and he says that policy was designed and targeted at a political party to bring untold hardship to Nigerians. And he also confirmed that currency confiscation has also been thrown out the window, and whatever you ask for in the bank is what you get in terms of no limitations. And he also confirmed that if there's need for further extension, it will be done. And by the time he's no longer governor of Kaduna State, the governors of Zamfara and Kogi State will continue the fight if need be. Now, we still have with us economist and financial analyst Paul Alaje in the Abuja studio, and we have with us in studio Arise news analyst Mr. Dayo Sobowale. Thank you, gentlemen, for your patience. Paul, let's just begin with you. Now, one thing that was mentioned was that this provides a relatively smooth platform for the president-elect to begin his tenure. And I'm wondering if that is true, in spite of the trillions of debt that is also awaiting him. Please fill us in.
Well, with the judgment, like I said earlier, it depends on what will happen to money supply. The real challenge Nigerians have is not the color of money. It is not whether the old money or new money is spent. It is the availability of cash in an environment where the network has huge challenges, where other channels, which we call electronic channel, are not as effective as we want it to be. So if the central bank honors this judgment, I hope, whether with old note or new note, which is what the Council of State have said, and many other respected body in the country, that increase money supply. Let the old note and the new note be spent side by side. But for some reasons, we have seen drastic reduction in the available of money supply in the economy. Even though we have started seeing some reduced queue started reducing at the ATM point. Perhaps people have decided to move on with their lives, since it's as though the policy will not be changed. But I also want us to wait very carefully to hear what President Buhari and Mr. Godwin Emefiele, to see how they will respond to this judgment. Remember that there was a ruling in the first instance that they should hold on continuation of the policy. But the response to that was 200 Naira notes will remain in the circulation, while 500 and 1,000 Naira notes will not be accepted as legal tender. This is going to be an interesting moment. Now that the Apex Court has taken a position that all should be spent, should be accepted as legal tender till the last day of this year, I only hope that those in authority would also accept, so that we can have a smooth transition, if you like. Now, looking at the president-elect and whether he's going to have a smooth ride or not, the president-elect is going to embrace about 42% youth unemployment. And I'm not surprised when in his acceptance speech, he was referring more to youth. He mentioned youth more than any other person that have accepted victory, that have given a speech on acceptance, an acceptance speech on victory, having won presidential election. Senator Tinubu had mentioned youth more than ever before. And the reason are obvious. Percentage of youth seems to have another candidate. And you could see that on social media. People have said social media has no impact. But this election has proven that social media has tremendous impact and influenced people's opinion. Even though 2015, when President Buhari was to be president, we saw the impact of Twitter, among other platforms, that people have used to shape people's opinion. We have seen that those platforms are now very, very effective, and subsequently, we should not undermine them. That said, the youth unemployment is about 42% of the employable number of young people in Nigeria. So we have to deal with that. 77 trillion naira. Ways and means 23.7 plus the other debts that we are owing. These are huge responsibility. Apart from what President Buhari has budgeted for 2023 budget, what he has budgeted as debts that we collect by 2025, President Tinubu may be faced with above 100 trillion naira debt. What that means is IMF report already showed us early last year that by the middle of 2025 or more, maybe 2026, all we will generate in revenue may be used to service debt. Therefore, Mr. Tinubu has promised in some of his campaign rallies that he will get to work from day one. And I want to tell him that he may not need from day one to get to work, unlike President Buhari that waited for 6 months before appointing minister. I hope that Senator Tinubu by now would have started hunting some of the persons he thinks want to be in his cabinet, because the issue of debt is a real issue. The issue of not producing up to capacity in terms of crude is a real issue. The issue of youth unemployment is a major issue. And I've said the president that will liberate Nigeria is not the one that danced the most on campaign rally, but the one that is able to provide us with relatively constant power supply and improve our output in terms of export, such that our population that is the largest in the whole of Africa can compete with other large populations. For instance, America, that is the largest in Northern America, Brazil in the Southern America, Germany in Western Europe, Russia, and of course China of the rest of the world, the largest economy. They are not focusing on agriculture. President Buhari sold agriculture to Nigeria, and at that point when he was sworn in, I mentioned time and again that when you focus on agriculture by telling people to go to farm and it's not organized, it is going to end in failure. 8 years after, whether the administration has succeeded or failed is left for all of us to judge. We want to have another president-elect. If all that Nigeria will be promised is agriculture, but not manufacturing, you can come again either in the next 4 years or 8 years and ask me whether the president will succeed or not. But I can tell you in advance, if you don't channel the energy of our young people into production and manufacturing by ensuring that power supply is constant, I tell you, such president is heading for oblivion.
All right, Paul Alaje, economist and financial analyst, thank you so much for that very in-depth analysis. Now, we're going to cross over to the Supreme Court, where we are joined by Arise News correspondent Godfrey Oshemoge. Godfrey, we've seen jubilation, excitement, especially from the governors, and we saw some legal heads as well, hugging and embracing. Now, with this judgment passed, Governor El-Rufai made reference to the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, as well as to the Attorney General of the federal government. Is their fate in essence sealed? Because it seems like they may not have jobs very soon.
Well, it's too early in the day to jump to such conclusions as we speak. Of course, we know the late nationalist Nnamdi Azikiwe made it very clear that in politics, there are no permanent friends or permanent enemies, only permanent interests. Well, when interests clash at some point during politicking or anything that sort, of that nature, well, you know, certain interests clash at that point, and then that is a phase that some people live past, you know, basically. So it's very likely that these parties, these people who are involved in the whole issue, you know, having this fuel in the political narrative, may reach a common ground going in the days to come. So that's the intrigue. That's one of the intrigue of politics. So it's early in the day to conclude that those names mentioned will be out of job when the new government assumes power anytime soon.
Thank you so much, Godfrey. Now, I'm just wondering if there are any whispers going on as regards what the current president, Muhammadu Buhari, might do. Would he respect this decision by the court, even though it was a question that was posed when the governors, that's El-Rufai and co, were addressing the media? It's still a question. Do you think, based on what you might be hearing, that he will honor what's been said?
Yes, it's quite hard to actually respond to with respect to what the president's position may be. Looking at his, many have criticized him for failing to, so to speak, heed with previous court decisions, as it were. But then, of course, these are the last days of his administration. I want to believe that it's only logical that he ends his tenure as president of Nigeria in a flurry. At least let this be a high point of his government, that he did something that many Nigerians cheered, looking at the current hardship Nigerians have had to go through to lay hands of cash, as it were. So we're looking very likely that he will, what people will call uncharacteristically of him, heed this court decision to say, okay, yes, they've said the old and the new Naira notes will be used together till December 31st. But then it is still early yet to see what the president will do. But I'm guessing that he will heed it. But then to join us in this interview with a legal analyst, Chinwe Ezegbu, to get her own take on this subject. So Chinwe, today's court decision, did it come to you as a surprise?
Thank you very much. Fimbia and Cynthia, hello. Thank you very much. Today has been a landmark in the history of our judiciary. And we must thank the 7 justices for their wonderful judgment. The declaratory judgment was given by 7. However, the lead judgment was read by Justice Emmanuel Adim. And on this beautiful day, which will be remembered by our descendants, at least 200 years from now, our descendants will be referring to today, 3rd of March, as the day the Supreme Court, our apex court, made a fantastic decision on behalf of all Nigerians, showing that the Constitution is supreme. And Section 1, subsection 1 of the Nigerian Constitution states categorically that the Nigerian Constitution is supreme and that other provisions of the law that are inconsistent with the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution will be void and nullified if they are inconsistent with the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution.
Yes, talking about the Constitution, the apex court in its decision today fell short of calling the president, acting a form of a despot, as it were, for failing to heed the decision of the court, that of 8th February. Do you buy into this line of thought?
Yes, obviously we have to comply with the decision of the Supreme Court. More particularly, there was a declaratory judgment today stating in particular that the directive from the president was unconstitutional. In the Lord Justice's own words, he said the directive cannot be given without due consultation with the National Security Council and the National Council of States. And the justices actually went further to say that the directive is illegal. Under Section 20 of the CBN Act, which is the Central Bank of Nigerian Act, which gives the central bank governor the directive and the authority to print new notes. However, there are some conditions under that act that says that the governor must do so within reasonable notice. And the Supreme Court stated today that 3 months will not be sufficient under the Constitution. So he extended, all extended the notice to 31st of December 2023, which gives everyone the right to use both the old Naira notes and the new Naira notes. So we thank the Apex Court for this beautiful judgment. I'm very excited that we can go back now and use our old notes. Thank you.
Also, thank you, Chinwe, for your time. So over to you at the studios in Lagos.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that. That's Rise News correspondent Godfrey Eshomoge. Now, let's bring the conversation back into studio, Mr. Sobowale. I'm sure you have a lot to say. Let's begin from a political note. Let's begin with the implication, as was shared by our correspondents and by the legal analysts, the implication that the justice who made the ruling implied that President Buhari may have behaved in a despotic manner. What's your take on that?
Yes. Let me first of all commend the courage of the judges of the Supreme Court in calling the president to order. We have 3 arms of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. This is the purview of the judiciary. and it has exercised its constitutional rights and competence, and I commend them. I don't think the president will ever contemplate not obeying the Supreme Court order. Again, let me commend the governors as champions, true champions of the Nigerian masses. They are indeed, I call them the Salvation Army of comfort for the Nigerian army. Because, for the Nigerian populace. But they are in the same party with the president. You heard what El-Rufai said, that the people close to the president who made him to put in place this currency design on the eve of an election were people who contested for governorship in their party and lost. So it was a case of sour grapes. So it's a deliberate case of people trying to mess up the political system on the eve of the campaign. But then, the issue was being raised whether the president will comply. I think Nigeria prides itself as being under the rule of law. And constitutionalism means we work according to the Constitution, uphold the letters and tenets of the Nigerian Constitution. I don't see the president doing otherwise. Well, it will just be unthinkable.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sobowale. We still have Paul Alaje with us, who is an economist. Paul, thank you so much for your patience. Now, originally, before this judgment, we were going to speak with you about what the president-elect would need to do to hit the ground running. But most analysts are saying that the next 4 years are being seen as the last chance for Nigeria to pull its economy out of the pits. Just wondering if you could help us make sense of that.
Okay, so the next 4 years, it's going to start on a difficult note. Whether the difficulty will come with a lot of ease much later, it depends on the leader of the nation and the team he's working with. As I talk to you, on Ways and Means alone, on annual basis, of the 8 trillion naira or a little bit more that will generate will be used to service debts of Ways and Means that has been collected unjustifiably from the Central Bank of Nigeria. That on one hand. We don't have enough revenue, but we have also not followed the due process in collecting some of our loans. We saw the DMO, Debt Management Office, doing everything possible to convince the National Assembly to regularize some of this money that have been collected, even without the knowledge of the DMOs in Nigeria. That on one hand. We also have other major issues, such as reduction in the value of Naira, such as not producing enough, unemployment, poverty, etc., etc. So the next president must depart from the old norm, or what I call the current norm, an obnoxious economic policy, and ensure that there is room for both monetary and fiscal authority to converge on policy. Because at the end of the day, all the policies and laws we want to make is for the Nigerian people. And it's not Nigerian people to be guinea pigs to laws. So the next president has a lot to do. And I want to advise that we get the ball rolling from day one, even before inauguration. What are the key areas that I think the next president should focus on? Number one, like I said earlier, is the issue of power. I'm not saying power will come within 1 year or 2 years, but we have seen nations transform their economy. We have seen nations become more committed. There are some contracts that have been signed. If there is need for those contracts to be reviewed regarding power supply, I can tell you that this review needs to be considered and be given urgent attention. There is nothing that is cast in stone, that we have set of discos that rather than giving us power, what we see is power dancing on our bulbs. It comes and goes at will. So if they said they have signed a contract or an agreement with the Nigerian states and we are unable to provide it, then it's cause for a review. But let me go to the key issue here, the issue of subsidy. The next president must know that he has labor on one side to contend with for subsidy removal, and he also has limited resources to contend with on the left for not having enough resources. And I've advised time and again President Buhari and a few other presidents that have been privileged to write in the newspaper and also to write articles and to make presentation to, We are faced with difficult moments. Recall that in 2000, we did not plan for COVID, it came. In 2022, February, exactly a year plus now, Vladimir Putin of Russia occupied Ukraine. The price of diesel in Nigeria is not in the mix, but because a country occupied another, the price of diesel in Nigeria jumped from 300, 289 actually, jumped from 289 to over 900, multiplied by 3 just within a year. The question is, what are we going to do about subsidy? If subsidy must be removed, which I think it should, we must find significant palliative. We must find substantial palliative for our people. And the palliative will not just to buy a few coastal buses to say they are moving around. Because it is not everyone that will use those coastal buses. And also, issue of subsidy is not that you are fighting against the rich. Removal of subsidy is actually against the poor more. Because someone who is on 30,000 and somebody who is on 500,000, what is the proportion of his income that such person would have used to buy petrol in his vehicle? It's going to be very small. But the man that wants to transport himself from home to work, and if the price of transport multiplied by 2 is going to take significant proportion from his income. And this is why when we hear people make comments on economic issues and they are not economists, we wonder where those arguments are coming from. So when subsidy is removed, the truth is that people will have, it will impact people negatively. But it's a decision that must be taken. So the next president must know how to provide succor, especially to labor, as represented by Nigeria Labour Congress and TUC. Because without which, you'll be throwing away 6.6 trillion naira. And I believe by next year, it will be more. 6.6 trillion naira. These are issues that the next president and the team, beyond looking at strategy, beyond looking at getting to office, if you truly want Nigeria to move forward, it's not going to be a matter of joke or a matter of celebration. It does not call for a lot of celebration. It calls for a lot of action, and we need to start looking at this action one after the other. And if I have more time, I may also want to look at manufacturing and be very specific. We have over 40 million pupils in Nigeria.
But we have noted the very informed position that you've given us, and I do hope that the powers that be are paying attention. Thank you so much, economist and financial analyst. Thank you again, Paul Alaje, and Arise News analyst Dayo Sobowale. Thank you so much.